A marine survey landed on a kitchen table in Ohio about a year ago. 12 pages, clean as a whistle. The fuel tanks were noted as appearing serviceable. The engine was described as being in operating condition at the time of survey. The deck was showing some age, but functional. That retired fella read those words, felt his shoulders come down off his ears, and wired $89,000 for a 1986 trawler the very next morning. 8 months later, he is standing in a boatyard in the rain, looking at a repair quote for $41,000. 2 corroded fuel tanks, a wet deck core, a transom soft enough to push your thumb into. And here is the part that ought to make you angry. Every one of those problems was sitting on that boat the day he signed. The survey just never told him. Here is what nobody on the brokerage dock wants you to understand. A survey is only ever as honest as the man holding the moisture meter, and a great many of them are quietly working for the broker who feeds them business, not for you who pays the bill. So today I am handing you the 6 red flags that should kill any trawler deal stone dead, no matter how lovely she looks in the listing photos. These are the 6 things a real surveyor crawls through that hull to find, and the very same 6 things a friendly surveyor is paid to step right over. Learn them, and you will never be the man standing in the rain with that bill in his hand. Miss even one of them, and the cheapest boat at the dock becomes the most expensive mistake of your retirement. Let us walk through all 6. Red flag number 1. Soft decks and a wet core. This is the one that hides right under your feet, and it is the one that turns a pretty boat into a tear-her-apart job. A trawler deck is not solid fiberglass. It is a sandwich. 2 thin skins of fiberglass with a core of balsa wood or foam in the middle to make it stiff and light. That works beautifully right up until water gets in, and on a 40-year-old boat, water always finds a way in. Every deck fitting, every stanchion base, every old screw hole some previous owner sealed with the wrong tube of caulk lets a little water past. It soaks into that balsa core and it sits there. The wood goes soft, then it goes black, then it turns to a wet mulch you could scoop out with a spoon. From the dock you would never know. The boat looks perfect. But step on the side deck near a stanchion, or up on the foredeck around the windlass, and a wet core gives under your boot like a rotten floorboard. A spongy, springy feel where solid glass should be rock hard. That sponge is the sound of money leaving your account. Recoring a deck means grinding off the top skin, digging out every scrap of black mush, laying fresh core, and glassing it all back. On a 36-footer that is $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, and a boat torn open for months. A real surveyor walks every inch of that deck, tapping it with a little hammer, listening for the change from a sharp crack to a dull thud. And he runs a moisture meter over every panel. The friendly surveyor writes, "Deck shows some age, but functional," and keeps walking. You do not accept that. You demand the moisture readings, panel by panel, written down. No readings, no deal. Red flag number 2. Corroded fuel tanks. This is the expensive one. This is the $40,000 surprise that put our man in the rain. Down in the belly of most of these classic trawlers sit 1 or 2 big metal fuel tanks, and on the boats from the 70s and 80s, they were built out of black iron or aluminium. Black iron rusts from the inside out, where you cannot see it, where the diesel and the condensation sit year after year. Aluminium tanks pit and corrode where they touch their own straps and where water pools underneath them. And here is the cruel part of the design. To save space, the builder dropped those tanks in early and then built the whole salon floor right on top of them. The tank is buried. You cannot get a torch on it, you cannot put your hand on the bottom of it, you cannot see the side that is rotting. So a surveyor can stand in that engine room, shine his light on the top of a tank that looks absolutely fine, call it serviceable, and never once see the pinholes weeping diesel down low where the boat keeps it hidden. When a tank finally lets go, you do not patch it, you drop it. And to drop a buried tank, you tear up the salon sole, the cabinetry, sometimes the engine has to come forward, all to lift out a tank and weld up a new one. $15,000 to $25,000 a tank, and most of these boats carry two. The red flag is any tank you cannot fully inspect. Any tank with staining or weeping at the bottom. Any boat that smells of diesel in the bilge. And any survey that calls a buried 40-year-old tank serviceable without telling you it could only ever see the top of it. Ask the question straight. Did you inspect the bottom and the outboard side of every tank? If the answer is no, that is not a tank you can trust. That is a coin flip with your retirement. Red flag number 3. Blisters and osmosis below the waterline. This one you can only catch with the boat hauled out of the water, up on stands, the bottom paint scraped back, and that is exactly why so many buyers miss it. They survey the boat in the water, in the slip, all pretty above the waterline, and they never once look at the part that actually keeps them afloat. Osmosis is water working its way through the gel coat into the fiberglass laminate and reacting with the resin underneath. It pushes the gel coat up into blisters, little bubbles, sometimes a handful, sometimes a whole hull peppered with hundreds of them like a bad case of acne. Pop one and it weeps a sour-smelling fluid. A few small blisters on a 40-year-old hull is normal and usually no drama. But a hull covered in them, or big deep ones reaching down into the laminate, tells you the fiberglass itself is drinking water, and the fix is brutal. You peel the entire gel coat off the bottom, let the hull dry out for months under cover, then relaminate and recoat the whole thing. That is a 5-figure job that can run past $20,000 on a bigger boat, and it ties her up for the better part of a year. The red flag is simple. Any survey done with the boat still in the water is half a survey. You insist on a haul out. You want that bottom looked at, you want a moisture meter run across the hull below the waterline, and you want the blisters counted and measured, not waved off. If the seller will not let you haul her out, ask yourself what he is afraid you will find under the paint. And if this is the straight talk you are not getting anywhere else on the dock, do me one favor and tap that subscribe button. I put one of these out every week. No hype, just the stuff the man in the polo shirt is hoping you never learn. Right, on to number 4, and this is the one that breaks the most hearts. Because it is the very heart of the boat. Red flag number 4, a tired engine with no story to tell. Now the good news on a proper trawler is that the engine is usually the simplest, toughest thing aboard. A Ford Lehman, a Perkins, a Cummins, slow-turning mechanical diesels that will run 14,000 hours if you treat them right. But a good engine and a neglected good engine are two very different animals, and the survey alone will not tell them apart. Here is the trap. A diesel that has been sitting idle at the dock for 2 years, barely run, started up once a month for 10 minutes, can turn over sweetly during a dock test and still be halfway to a rebuild. Idling proves nothing. So the red flag is an engine with no records and no real sea trial. No logbook, no stack of oil change receipts, no idea when the injectors were last done or the heat exchanger last opened up. And a seller who gets nervous the moment you ask to run her hard. You want 3 things before you trust a marine diesel. 1. An oil analysis. You pull a sample, send it to a lab, and for a few quid they read the wear metals and tell you if there is coolant in the oil or bearing material where it should not be. 2. A proper sea trial. Not idling at the dock. You take her out, you push the throttle up, you load that engine hard for a good long while, and you watch the temperature and you watch for smoke. A tired engine that idles like a kitten will cook itself the first time you load it for a real run. 3. The records. A binder full of receipts is worth more than any fresh coat of paint because it is proof that somebody actually cared. No records, no oil analysis, no hard sea trial, and you are not buying 20 good years. You are buying a $10,000 paperweight that happens to be sitting in a boat. Red flag number 5. Wiring that some previous owner turned into a fire hazard. This one does not cost as much to put right as the tanks or the deck, but it is the one that can kill you, so it has earned its place on this list. Take the panels off and look behind them on a lot of these older boats, and you will find 40 years of owners each adding their own little bit. A new stereo here, a fridge there, an inverter somebody fitted over a weekend. And too often it is done with household wire that is not rated for the salt and the vibration, with connections twisted together and wrapped in electrical tape instead of proper, crimped marine terminals, with no fuses where there ought to be fuses, and a rat's nest behind the panel nobody has traced in decades. On a boat, a bad connection corrodes, it heats up, and you have got a fire a long way from the nearest help, sitting right on top of however many gallons of diesel. The red flag is a surveyor who glances at the panel, flips a few switches to watch the lights come on, and calls the electrical system functional. Lights coming on tells you almost nothing. You want him behind those panels. You want to hear about the state of the wiring, the fusing, the battery installation, and the shore power connection, which is a classic spot for dangerous corrosion and overheating. Tangled tape and pray wiring is not a deal breaker on its own, but it is a real job. And more than that, it tells you how the last owner treated the whole boat. A man who wires like that cut corners everywhere, and the survey needs to find every one of them. Red flag number 6, and we have saved a serious one for last. A wet transom and soft structure down deep. The transom is the flat back end of the boat, and on a lot of trawlers it carries real load. The swim platform, sometimes the rudder gear, the weight of the whole stern. Like the deck, it is often a cored sandwich, and like the deck, once water gets into that core, it goes soft and rotten. Only here it is holding up the back of your boat. A wet transom you can sometimes catch by tapping, that same dull thud, or by the swim platform feeling loose under your weight, or moisture readings going through the roof back aft. But the deeper danger is the structure you cannot see at all, the stringers. Those are the big fiberglass beams running down inside the hull that the engine sits on and that hold the whole shape of the boat. If water has got into them, or if the bonding where they tie into the hull has started letting go, you have got a structural problem that makes everything else on this list look cheap. This is the one that should make you slow right down. A real surveyor gets down into that bilge with a torch and his bare hands, sounding the stringers, checking the bonding, pressing on the transom, reading the moisture deep and low. The friendly surveyor stays up in the nice, dry salon, so the red flag is any survey that never went into the bilge, any softness or movement back at the transom, and any reluctance from the seller to let a man crawl down into the dirty bottom of the boat. Because that dirty bottom is where the truth lives. So there are your 6. Soft decks and a wet core. Corroded, buried fuel tanks. Blisters below the waterline, a tired engine with no story, tape and pray wiring, and a wet transom hiding soft structure underneath. Every one of them can be sitting on a boat that looks absolutely beautiful from 10 feet away on the dock, and every one of them is exactly what a real survey is supposed to drag out into the light. So here is how you protect yourself, and it comes down to 3 things. First, you hire your own surveyor. Not the broker's mate, not the nice fella he keeps recommending who lives just down the road. A surveyor who gets 90% of his work from broker referrals is not working for you. He is protecting his pipeline, and a deal he kills is a referral he loses. You find your own man, one with no history at all with that broker, and you pay him yourself. Second, you insist on the full job. The boat hauled out on the hard, a moisture meter over the deck, the hull, and the transom. The tanks inspected as far as is humanly possible, and flagged honestly if they cannot be. An oil sample sent off to a lab. A real sea trial where you load that engine hard, not 10 minutes of idling. And a written report that runs 40, 50, 60 pages with photographs, not a tidy 12-page sheet that says everything is lovely. Third, you walk the boat slow and you watch the seller. A good owner with an honest boat hands you the keys, hands you the binder of receipts, and tells you to take your time. The fellow with something to hide gets twitchy the moment you ask to haul her out, run her hard, or crawl into the bilge. That twitch is worth more than any report. A few hundred to a couple of £1,000 for a proper survey feels like a lot of money when you are already stretching for the boat. It is the cheapest insurance you will ever buy. It is the single thing standing between you and being the man in the boatyard in the rain, staring at a $40,000 bill for problems that were there the day he signed. The crash has put good, honest boats out there cheap. Boats a careful old captain looked after for 30 years, and they are a gift. But for every one of those, there are 3 more wearing fresh paint over rot, and the only thing that tells them apart is a survey done right. Get these 6 red flags into your head before you ever set foot on the dock, and you will be the smart minority who buys the dream instead of somebody else's mistake. If you got something out of this, do me that favor and subscribe because I run one of these every single week. And I want to hear from you down in the comments. Tell me this. Number 1. What is the worst thing a survey ever missed on a boat you owned or nearly bought? Number 2. Which of these 6 red flags scares you the most when you think about your own next boat? And number 3. Would you ever buy a trawler without hauling her out first? Or is that a hard no for you? Drop your answers below. I read every one of them. And next week, I am pulling apart 3 trawlers that look like proper bargains and hide a single repair that costs more than the whole boat is worth. I will see you on the next one.